let's officially get started. So in case you haven't figured out, my name's Debbie Stein. I'm the founder and chief instructor of the Science Technology Policy Academy, which started this summer when my in-person workshops all of a sudden need to go online. And it's worked out well in the sense I have been able to begin teaching people from all over the country, at some point, sometimes all over the world, all about science and technology policy. And in this case, I often see people apply, for the AAAS Science Technology Policy Fellowships, which are, of course, a wonderful thing. And I've had many of my fellows, interns, students participate in that program. But I always like to remind people that there is a world beyond the AAAS fellowships that is just as worthy. And, you can actually even apply for a real job like I did. And also some people just don't want to live in DC. They maybe want to live in other parts of the country besides DC and still participate in policy. So that's the origin of this seminar, and hopefully it'll happen. So I'm just going to say one more reminder as before we go to the first panelist, that if you have questions, put them in the Q&A box. If you just want to chat, put it in the chat box. And then the panelists should try to answer questions as they go. Jeffrey, who's going to be our first speaker, does have to leave early, so make sure you get any questions in for him as soon as he stops speaking. But otherwise, you'll see here that I've sort of started out with the state fellowship programs. So we have California, Idaho, Missouri, New Jersey, and Connecticut. Then we're going to talk about a couple of federal programs, where you're working with in federal agencies, the Federal Management, Presidential Management Fellowship Program, and then the Oak Ridge program. And then we're going to talk about sort of STIPI, that's the Science Technology Policy Institute, which sort of helps a lot of agencies do their work. And then the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, which is not part of the government, but does provide a lot of advice to the government and other organizations. So with that, we're going to move to our first speaker, which is Jeffery. And each person has 5 minutes for their spiel. So go ahead, Jeffery.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jeffery Song. I am the program manager of the CCST Science and Technology Policy Fellowship. I'm also an alum of the program. I did the fellowship 3 years ago. You can see here in my class photo in the back left there. So the CCST fellowship is modeled similarly to the AAAS fellowship. We recruit for 15 PhD scientists and engineers to spend a fellowship year of public service working in California state legislative and executive branch offices. So for your fellowship, you will be embedded as staff, kind of working in that office as a member of that team, learning about the policymaking process by doing it and participating in it, and learning directly from mentors inside the office. This is a really great experiential learning opportunity for anyone who is interested in learning about how state policy works, both in the legislature and at the agencies. And then specifically, if you're interested here in California, this is a great fellowship for you. We're currently recruiting for our 2022 Science Fellowship cohort. The applications just opened and they're due March 1st. Interviews will be shortly thereafter, and then offers are made early June for the fellowship start next November. I'm just going to answer a few of our frequently asked questions before opening it up. A question we often get is, do I need to have a California connection to apply? The answer is no. I'm a good example of that. I grew up in Houston, Texas, and did my PhD in Pittsburgh. And but at the end of my kind of doctoral studies, I felt a desire to want to learn more about how the policymaking process worked, and so I applied to this fellowship. Also specifically interested in looking at California as being kind of the forefront of a lot of environmental policies, which is what I was interested in. And what you can find, and you'll hear also from the other states here is that the exciting part of working at the state level is that it can often be kind of a laboratory of different policy ideas that can either be replicated at other states or at the federal level. The second question I think we often get is, do I need my PhD in hand to apply? And the answer is no. We just ask that you have your PhD completed before you start the fellowship. So the last day we ask you is to have a defense date by the September before the fellowship starts in November. So what that means is if you're currently in your final year of your PhD and you're kind of looking at a spring or summer or even an early fall defense, please still apply. And hopefully the fellowship application can be kind of your push to wrap up your dissertation work. So Debbie, I think I'll close it at here.
Yeah, so just, we have a little bit of time, so let's just get a few questions in. So we have one, which is, are fellows currently working remotely? Will that change in the future? How has the fellowship adapted to COVID?
Great question. So the California State Legislature and executive branch agencies that we partner with have all mainly adjusted to remote work. And so the fellows will all also be working remotely to start. Our current cohort is doing that, and our past 2020 cohort, they had to adapt mid-year. All of the fellowship programming, such as our professional development and our seminars, have also all adapted to being delivered virtually through webinars and Zoom meetups. We did ask for this most recent cohort that they move, and we help pay for and facilitate the move to Sacramento to at least be close in the event that there is an opportunity to start working, or at least to maybe in-person distance to meet some of their host office mentors. But otherwise, everything is operating and being done virtually.
Okay. Can physician scientists apply to the CCST fellowship?
Yes, you just need a PhD or kind of similar other terminal degree, MD. I think please check our website. This is a great plug for that. Please check our website for kind of the ultimate final deliberation, or shoot me an email that you can see, and I'll clarify that for you.
And if you're an international postdoc, can you apply for the fellowship, or do you have to be a U.S. citizen?
You do not need to be a U.S. citizen, but you do need work authorization to work in the United States. If you have any further kind of specific questions about that, again, also please don't hesitate to email me and I can give you further clarification.
Okay. And does being a current S&T policy fellow disqualify me from applying for the CCST fellowship?
Does that mean for
maybe they're
AAAS
fellow, maybe?
It does not. I think historically, this is the 2022 cohort will be our 13th year. We haven't had any AAAS fellows come to the state level to do this. We have had CCST fellows go to AAAS after their fellowship. So I can't see why not, if a fellow wanted to get that state experience after their federal experience, that the fellowship could work. Okay,
great. Well, thank you, Jeffrey. And we will move on to our next person. So that's Veronika from Idaho.
Hi everyone, my name is Veronika Vazhnik, and I am this year's Idaho Science and Technology Policy Fellow. I'm part of the inaugural cohort, so we just started this year for the first time in September. And I'm one of the two fellows. I work for Idaho Governor's Office of Energy and Mineral Resources. The second fellow, she is at the Species Conservation Office of the Governor. And this fellowship is a one-year appointment, and currently it is at the executive branch, so not any other positions, but you would be working somehow related to the governor, possibly Department of Environmental Quality, so offices like that. The applications are open now, if that is something that is interesting to you. I come from a background of energy research and agricultural research, so the reason why I was interested was definitely the energy aspect of my work. I'm also what is called the Idaho Science and Technology Center for Advanced Energy Studies Fellow. So part of my appointment is with a center that is located in collaboration with a national lab. So the US has I think it's 17 national labs that do energy research. Idaho has one of them, Idaho National Lab, that is mostly a nuclear research facility, but also some renewable energy research and cybersecurity or national security research. So if you become a science policy case fellow, then part of your appointment is actually going to the national lab, giving seminars of how do you communicate your policy besides your actual work as a policy analyst with the office of your appointment. And the Center for Advanced Energy Studies includes multiple universities across the region, like Boise State University, University of Idaho, Idaho State, so you give seminars there as well. So it's kind of a nice connection with academia. I will piggyback on the question that was asked to the previous speaker about being a foreign national or a US citizen. And that is actually one of the reasons I looked at state fellowships. I am from Belarus and a foreign national, and I knew that for AAAS that wouldn't be a possibility, even though I was at Penn State, part of Science Policy Society, where we sent a lot of people to AAAS. And yeah, I thought the state opportunity was a great way to still contribute. So definitely consider. You don't have to have a connection to Idaho. It's definitely great if you would like to live in a beautiful state with mountains and snow and foothills and all that kind of fun. It's a great place to see a lot of interconnected people because the state is so small. You just walk across the street, you're in the governor's office, you walk across the other street and you're talking to your colleagues across the board. You just meet them. So it's definitely a great and close-knit community where you can hear and contribute more. So yeah, that's in general how the fellowship goes. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me, or there's the contact that I have included on the slide. And yeah, apply. It's due in February, and then you would start your appointment by late August.
Okay. Yes, and so as a reminder to our audience, if you have any questions for the speakers, type them into the Q&A box. So Veronika, what about the question about remote activities? Like, how are you guys handling that in Idaho?
So that depends on the office where you work. I am at the Office of Energy, and our office has been doing it like a checkerboard structure. We have about 2 to 3 people at the office every morning. So you have the opportunity to choose 1 or 2 days where you're physically there and the rest you're teleworking. But there is a portion of being there in person. I know the Office of Species Conservation, they're full-time in the office because they're considered essential, but they wear masks. I know the Department of Environmental Quality, when we're interviewing, it was full-time remote work. So it just really depends on what you negotiate and what office you're hired by.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, now we have Josh from Missouri.
Thanks. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here, and thank you, Debbie, for organizing and inviting me to be part of this. Also, thank you, Jeffrey and Veronika, for answering FAQs. I think I have the same answers to all of those questions for our program. And then to clarify, we are working fully remotely right now, so anything you heard to answer those FAQs also applies to the program I'm about to speak about. So my name is Josh Mueller. I earned my PhD in neuroscience from UC Santa Barbara this past year, and I'm currently working as the Health and Mental Health Fellow for the Missouri Science and Technology Policy Initiative, which we call MOST. So I want to tell you a little bit about our kind of day-to-day workings, what my role is as a fellow, how our organization works in the state. But to do that, I want to briefly contextualize with a bit of information about Missouri state government. So Missouri General Assembly here is a part-time legislature, only in session from January through the end of May, and it has 8-year legislative term limits. So what we heard a lot coming into this program is about a kind of lack of continuity and institutional knowledge being lost because of staff turnover. So our program is really designed to fill that sort of informational gap rather than serve as a kind of science advocacy or lobbying presence or direct legislative or committee staff. So we're kind of an independent informational nonprofit in the state. And so to carry out that mission, our program is currently housing 5 PhD level legislative fellows. I mentioned that I'm serving as the health and mental health fellow right now, but I listed the other topic areas. So you can see there's kind of a broad variety of topics that we're in committees that we're covering right now. As a brief aside, I really did want to point out explicitly that we do include social science in our usage of science in the organizational title here. We have fellows working on things like economics and education research. So I just wanted to clarify that because I know that term can sometimes be interpreted as limiting. So it's a year-long fellowship that begins in September. But like I mentioned, the legislative session begins in January. So there's a few different roles that we take on over the course of the year. From September to January, it's mainly focused on kind of training and independent study, network building, skill building, that sort of thing. We don't expect anyone to come to the program with a full kind of working understanding of Missouri legislative policy or science policy in the state. And then in the period that we're approaching right now, the legislative session from January to May, we provide kind of 2 main deliverables, what we call science notes, which are short form written briefs summarizing scientific research relevant to legislative agenda or kind of topic areas that we might hear from legislators about that they're interested in, and then committee testimony on those same sorts of issues. And then post legislative session and kind of in parallel, I guess, as well, we're working to assist state agencies with independent projects based on kind of our skill set and prior history. So it's also the first year of our program, and some of this is kind of in development as well. But I'd be happy to take any questions about specifics. So I've also down at the bottom here just included the kind of final logistical information. Like I mentioned, the fellowship begins in September, so applications are running from February 1st to March 15th. But I did want to plug that we currently have an opening for a data management and policy fellow. I tried to keep this sober and not include like 20 exclamation points, but we're really excited about this. We'd love to have you join as our 6th fellow, and it's a great opportunity to come get involved in science policy at the state level. So please check our website down in the bottom left corner here, or follow us on social media. Our Twitter handle's on the bottom right. And yeah, I'd be happy to take any questions you might have.
Okay, great. One question is, do any of the fellowships sponsor visas for international postdocs? No, for Idaho. What about you, Josh?
That's a good question. If someone has a concrete answer, otherwise I was going to direct to our program director, Rachel Owen, whose contact information you can find on the site.
Yeah, I think that probably gets pretty complicated. So yeah, I would suggest you email to the folks. And I should say, by the way, that the video for this will go up on YouTube, and then also I will be posting these slides on the Academy website. So has the remote option impacted professional development and networking opportunities? So Josh?
You know, what's interesting is I'm not sure if it's the remote option per se, so much as it is the fact that the reason for the remote option is a pandemic going on right now. I think particularly working on health issues, like so much of the legislative agenda and sort of agency workings and budget proceedings have really been scrambled in a way that I think has made it somewhat difficult to get people to commit the time and energy to do yet another Zoom meeting or phone call with someone that they don't necessarily know that well. So I think we've had a lot of success in getting people to talk to us, learn about our organization, network, all that sort of thing. But yeah, I think that the circumstances themselves have made it a bit more challenging. Definitely an exercise in persistence.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's move to our next one, which is Evan.
Hi, my name is Evan Morton. I am an Eagleton Science and Politics Fellow, in New Jersey. Very similar to the other state fellowships that have been mentioned. This is a one-year fellowship that starts in mid-July. And I am an engineer, so both scientists and engineers and a variety of science degrees, PhD degrees are welcome in this fellowship. You need US citizenship, or there's also a suitable immigration status for non-residents. Applications are due on January 18th, and this is the link to the application. There's a 2-week training in July to learn a lot about New Jersey. I really enjoyed the training. That was one of the highlights of this fellowship for me, because I'm not from New Jersey. So I learned a lot about the state in general and just how it's unique from other state governments. So I really enjoyed that. There's a $50,000 stipend. There's also a professional development fund, which for this year, since everything's pretty much all remote, you don't get as much out of that, but that could be used to go to conferences that could help you in your position or any other professional development opportunities that you might find. I used some of that funding for one of Debbie's policy classes, so you can do that as well. Health insurance is also covered. There's opportunities for positions in the legislative branch and the executive branch. I am working in the Senate Democratic office, mostly working on the Senate Energy and Environment Committee as a science aide. And also put here partisan opportunities. I put this because I think one thing that makes the Eagleton Fellowship unique from other fellowships is that it is supported by the Eagleton Institute of Politics. And so you learn through the training, you learn a lot about not just policy and how to use your scientific expertise in policy, but you also learn about politics and just learning about those partisan relationships. And so I didn't know that as working as a part of the legislature that I would really be, in the Senate Democratic office, and that comes with all of the politics as well. So if that's something that you're passionate about, if you're more, that's an opportunity to do if you don't want to work in the executive branch. But of course, great opportunities in the executive branch as well. There are also a lot of great resources within the Eagleton Institute of Politics. We have monthly check-ins just to talk to each other with any questions we might have, for us as fellows to get together and talk about progress that we've made and things that we've learned. Also, there are different events for professional development and just to continue learning about science communication and things like that. I've really enjoyed those, and the Eagleton Institute of Politics has been great just to learn a lot more about policy aspects in politics, as well as Rutgers University resources to help you with any science advice that you need and research abilities. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so is the policy focus more on technology, transfer innovation, STEM education, advising on legislation that is heavily scientific, or something else?
I'd say that depends on where you are position, what position you're in. For me, I'm in the Senate Democratic office, so I am mostly helping on giving science advice for particular bills that have to do with science. Sometimes they don't have to do with science. Sometimes it's like, hey, we need help on this bill. Can you help us with some research? So, but most of the time I'm working on scientific issues. But there are fellows working in the Bureau of Public Utilities, in the Department of Education, in the Department of Health. So of course, if you're in those specific departments, you're going to focus on particular projects in those departments. I'm not sure of any fellows that are specifically working on technology per se, but yeah, it kind of just depends on where you're placed.
Okay. And what is the acceptance rate for the fellowships? Do you guys know for, I don't know if you know them for New Jersey or Idaho, any of these others? Okay.
I'm not sure, and I know also another thing. This New Jersey fellowship is in its second year, so it's pretty new. So I'm not sure how that might affect the acceptance rate of if it's also becoming becoming more well known. But yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Okay. Okay, great. Let's move on to our next speaker, which is Anna from Connecticut.
Hi, my name is Anna Hagstrom. I got my PhD in environmental engineering at Yale back in 2018, and I'm the inaugural fellow at the Connecticut Academy of Science and Engineering, or CASE. This is the institution that hosts this fellowship. So my fellowship actually started back in April of 2019. Unlike the other fellowships that have presented so far, Connecticut's fellowship is a 2-year fellowship. And I've actually found this really, really valuable. It's given me a lot of time to really get into the weeds on the topics that I've looked into. So I'm placed in the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. So basically our state equivalent of the EPA. And I've been working on emerging contaminants policy, focusing on a class of chemicals called PFAS. So yes, as you can see, 2-year fellowship, our stipend is $55,000 a year, and the academy also covers relocation expenses. Again, like New Jersey, Connecticut provides funding for professional development to travel to conferences, participate in trainings and classes and the like, which has been really useful. And does not include health insurance, but provides a $1,000 a month stipend specifically for that. So our process for applying includes an application, a phone interview, and if requested, a second round of interviews. The preference is for those interviews to be in person, and they obviously were back when I applied, but that'll be contingent on pandemic safety moving forward. But in the event that it is in person, the travel and lodging is covered for that. And we don't currently have a call for applications open, but we hope to do that soon, and we will make sure that that is broadly advertised. If you're interested, we provided the email address for the director of the program. You can also reach out to me on Twitter or by email. And yeah, if you email Terry, you can be on our listserv, so you'll be one of the first groups to find out once our call opens. And all these details are subject to change.
So this is also a good time for me to mention that we do have a LinkedIn page for state science technology policy fellowships that I run. And so announcements are also made there. So if you type in the LinkedIn, I think it's just state science technology policy fellowships, or just go to my LinkedIn profile, Deborah Stein, S-T-I-N-E, and you'll see it listed among the groups that I'm a part of. So I did want to mention that. So one question for you, Anna, is what aspects of your PhD training have been especially beneficial during this fellowship?
I think just the general ability to be able to dive in and learn about new topics. I mean, I was an environmental engineer by training, but I knew nothing about emerging contaminants or PFAS when I started. So I think because of my PhD training, I knew how to kind of quickly get up to speed and get on my feet once I got in there, which was really useful. I think that one of the other big themes of the PhD is communication, just the ability to give presentations and to tailor information to different audiences. That becomes even more useful in what I do here because I communicate with a much broader variety of audiences. So not only scientists, but also various environmental advocacy groups and town halls, various trade organizations, really broad variety of different groups. I mean, I could go on, but I think those are a couple of the big ones.
Yeah, that's good. And do you need to have a previous science policy background to apply to the fellowship program?
No, you don't. I mean, I think that it helps to have demonstrated an interest and engagement in science policy in the past. I mean, I was part of a student group at Yale, but I had no quote unquote science policy experience. I just knew that rather than going into research, I wanted to kind of work at the interface between public policy and environmental science.
Okay, great. Thank you, Anna. Okay, next we have Nate with the Presidential Management Fellowship Program.
Hey everyone, good to be here. It's really good to see all these options at the state level. You know, when we think of fellowships and policy, everyone always immediately goes to AAAS or PMF. But a lot of really cool policy experiments do come out of state governments. So it's really neat to learn about what some of those opportunities are. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Presidential Management Fellowship. It's a 2-year fellowship. And one major differentiator between the PMF and most of the other fellowships you might be considering is that as a PMF, you are a federal civil servant from day one. So you're a federal employee, and that's important for a couple of reasons. One is you get federal benefits, including you start accruing service time towards career status as a fellow. And then the second reason is there are a range of activities across government that are legally designated inherently governmental functions. And those typically have to do with anything around policy decision-making. So things like rulemaking proceedings, contract management, contract awards are things that only government employees are allowed to do. And so as a PMF, you're allowed to be in the room and participating in those types of actions. So that's pretty neat. In terms of application and eligibility, you need a graduate degree or soon to have a graduate degree, but it doesn't have to be a PhD. So it can be a master's or an MBA or even a JD. Professional degrees are also accepted. And the PMF program in general is not necessarily STEM focused. So they suck in a wide range of disciplines. I will say that STEM backgrounds and the sort of analytical tools you get from a STEM background are in very high demand in government and in the PMF program. And then the last thing I'll say about the application is that selection is extremely competitive. So the window opens for only 2 weeks in the fall timeframe. I would not at all wait to start putting your application together for the window to open. And any questions you have about the logistics of applying or further details on the program, you can go to pmf.gov. It's actually a really informative government website as opposed to some of them out there. So there's a lot of info there and a lot of resources on putting together good application. And I'll take the next couple of minutes and just tell you about my experience as a PMF, just to give you a flavor. But the experiences of presidential management fellows vary widely depending on what agency and what office you end up in. So I served in the Department of Energy's Office of Policy, focused on electricity system issues. The Office of Policy is sort of the independent analytics shop for the Department of Energy. So DOE is divided, as you might imagine, into offices that are focused on particular technologies, whether it's fossil or renewable energy. Our job in the policy office was to be an independent, unbiased arbiter of this analysis and help with strategic decision making. And so that looked like, from a task perspective, anything from helping author major DOE strategic documents like the Quadrennial Energy Review or the staff report on electricity system resilience, to managing federally funded projects at the DOE National Lab. So I managed some of that research that was designed to inform policy decisions, to the day-to-day, spend a couple hours to a week writing up an information memo on a particular topic of interest to someone in leadership. So it was a dynamic environment with lots of different tasks. One neat thing about the PMF is you're required to do a rotation outside of your home office for 4 to 6 months. So I went over to DOD and worked again in a kind of strategic level analysis shop as the principal analyst on a project looking at how DOD acquires large systems with an eye towards upgradability. How easily are they able to be upgraded, and what are some best practices that the agency can learn to apply going forward. And then I made connections there. Actually, I went back to DOE for a few months after that rotation. The policy office got reorganized, so I reached back out to the Pentagon and got a permanent job back in that office. So it's a great way to try out federal government, and I'm happy to take questions online.
Okay, so let's just do a few here, which is, you mentioned there are placement opportunities in the federal civil service. Are there also opportunities in the foreign service as well?
So the State Department historically has been a big destination for PMFs. I don't know a lot about where they're placed within state, whether they're FSOs or if they're on the other side of things. But each agency has a PMF coordinator. I believe those are posted online, so you could definitely reach out to the PMF coordinator at state and find out.
What data analysis tools do you need a background in to be successful?
So it totally depends on the job, right? There are all kinds of jobs in federal government. For me personally, I use basic tools like the ability to know what optimization is, how you set up those types of problems, either in Excel or in a program like R. So that's what I've used in my jobs, but a lot of roles don't require that. It's like a previous commenter said, the ability to think about a problem, kind of work through in your head a basic research methodology and how you would generate solutions to that problem, and then figure out how to communicate it to a decision maker in a way that's intelligible is an important skill. So it's not always about the hardcore data analytics, although there's certainly a place for that.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, next up we have the ORISE fellowships. So we have Sarah. She is here, isn't she?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Oh, great. Thank you. I just can't see you.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Sarah. I am currently doing an ORISE fellowship right now. ORISE stands for Oak Ridge Institute for Science and Education. And I have the website there listed. Unlike many of the previous fellowship opportunities, this one, it can be very diverse. It is more of a funding opportunity for you to get experience with a number of organizations throughout the US government. And it is also available to university students, graduates. You can have an undergraduate degree, master's degree, PhD, or if you're even a faculty, there are some opportunities as well. Personally, I am currently in a PhD program. I believe I applied as recently receiving my master's degree, and my position is within the FDA. But as I mentioned, it is really dependent on what you want to do and where you want to apply. And the fellowship looks differently compared to the different organizations. So that's why the deadline is throughout the year. It depends on the opportunity you want, even within the FDA. There have been opportunities for ORISE fellows opening within my greater office. They open throughout the year. And since I have started, which was in July, we have had 2 more ORISE students join my office. So I listed the website here, Z-Intellect. That website it's the only way you can apply for the ORISE fellowships. And it is a great resource. It is very searchable. So you can search by keyword, you can search by the academic level you are, if you're still a student or if you're in the midst of a program. And even you can search within organizations. So yeah, I have some of the listed example organizations here. I mentioned that I am in the FDA. Personally, what I do is I am doing a risk analysis for the drug applications. And so we're looking at health policy, and we're using a lot of decision science. And it is incorporating a lot of my engineering background in with the policy side as well. I know that previous Q&As had asked about remote work. Traditionally, ORISE fellowships are always on site. Some of them are more research and lab-based, so they have to be on site. Mine typically would be on site in Maryland at the FDA headquarters, but we are working remote now as the FDA is remote. However, when the FDA does go back on site, I would be required to as well. That has impacted a little bit. I think that to answer 2 other previous questions, you do have to use some of the skills that I feel like I had to use during my PhD program of kind of self-motivation, because you don't have people checking in on you like you typically would during a fellowship program. I was assigned a mentor, but when she's not passing by my desk every day and we meet once a week, you really do have to kind of take charge of your projects and make progress on your own. But that's, I think, typical with a job, but just maybe not with a fellowship. The other thing that is a personal experience, but I have found working remote, I was nervous to start a fellowship remote and to feel like I was kind of being forgotten about or left behind because I wasn't an official employee. But my team has made it very easy to communicate and reach out. It doesn't feel formal to try and connect with them, and they have been great. So I still have had a great experience, even though it has been virtual.
Okay, and what qualifications, experiences are desirable when applying?
Great. So as I think it was Nathaniel mentioned, or I don't remember actually who mentioned, an interest in policy is desired. I didn't need to have any experience in the policy world, but an interest showing that I wanted to was a big one. I think that being good at communication, my specific application, and this is not true for all of them, included a written portion where I had to do a case study. And it was just maybe a 2-page write-up about how I would have addressed a problem, but that was really important, I think, for me personally, because that's one of my strengths, and it helped me get through to the next stage.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Sarah. Let's see. So next we have Vanessa from Stippy.
Hi, everyone. What a pleasure to speak with you all and answer any questions you might have. Thanks, Debbie, for thinking of us. We offer a fellowship that's a little bit of a different flavor than the ones that you might have heard about. I work for the Science and Technology Policy Institute, or STIPI, here in Washington, D.C. So if you might not be interested in Washington, D.C. careers, then that's another thing. But we are working remotely as well at this point. So what we're offering here is somewhat of a sister fellowship to the AAAS fellowship. And we look at it that way because instead of targeting PhD students, we actually target recent undergrads who have graduated or recently received their master's degree. So for instance, individuals who might be in an engineering program receive their Bachelor of Science or Engineering and go on to do a 5th year to receive their Master's of Engineering. So we recruit about 6 to 8 individuals each year to come on board, usually after the graduation season in May. And they can start as soon as, really as soon as they're ready. Most take the summer off and come in and work around the August and September timeframe. The fellowship lasts for 2 years and it can be extended for a 3rd year. I'm tag teaming this 5 minutes here with Tala Babu, also from Stippy, who was going to also talk a little bit about his own experience being a Science Policy Fellow. But before that, I also wanted to mention another opportunity. So that we are receiving applications for the fellowship through January 19th. The link to that is at the bottom of that slide. I can get you more information, or you could just look up our website, ida.org. But there's also another opportunity to bring on summer associates for about 10 to 12 weeks each summer. This is not specific to Stippy per se, but Stippy participates in this, meaning it's not specific to Stippy because it's actually we call it Summer Associates program that extends across our 3 organizations that are managed by IDA, the Institute for Defense Analyses. There's one in La Jolla that works on computational sciences. There's another one in Alexandria, Virginia that works closely with DoD. And the Pentagon there on national security issues. And there's a science and technology areas related to national security and cybersecurity. And then also, of course, the Stippy organization. So just to give you a sense of who we are one of 43 federally funded research development centers, FFRDCs, that are created by law to support and provide objective analytics to, in this case, to the Office of Science and Technology Policy in the White House. So we are based in Washington, D.C., actually a block from the White House, so that we have that close collaboration and work relationships with our sponsors. We receive only government funding. We're technically a nonprofit managed by IDA, which is a nonprofit. We receive only government funding, and that way are quasi-governmental in a sense. We do have a special relationship as an FFRDC defined by law as well, and working close collaboratively with our sponsors. I will say we work on a range of different topics. So my background is in mechanical engineering, but we have a huge range portfolio of science tech issues and also cross-cutting issues like STEM education, workforce, and the like. So let me hand it over to Tala to talk a little bit about his experience, if that's okay.
Yep. Hi, everyone. Tala Babu. I'm currently a fellow at Stippy. Prior to Stippy, I graduated with a bachelor's in physics from MIT and heard about the Stippy fellowship through another actually former fellow who I knew from school. And like Vanessa mentioned, we work across a pretty broad spectrum of science and technology issues. And as fellows, we are not assigned to a specific area or portfolio. So since I've been at Stippy, I've worked on things from space to space weather to federal technology transfer to quantum and other areas as well. So it's like pretty broad exposure in the work that fellows do here.
Okay, well, great. Thank you very much. Oh, I'm getting an echo. Let's go to the next person here because we're running out of time a bit here. So let's talk about the Gulf Research Program.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maisha Saeed. I manage the fellowship programs through Gulf Research Program, which is a unit in the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine. I also have Rachel Correll with me. She's a current fellow who will also tag team with me and share her experience as being a current fellow as well as starting her fellowship during a pretty difficult time. So we are very, very excited about how adaptable our fellows have been. So I just wanted Rachel to share her experience and what it's like for her at her host office. To just give you a general idea of what the fellowship does, our Science Policy Fellowship provides a first-hand policymaking experience to recent master's graduates, PhD students, or PhD students who are willing to take a year off, or PhD graduates. And we actually place them in the Gulf of Mexico states at federal, state, local, or non-governmental agencies, and they usually work on issues that are related to from a range of issues, from natural resources, oil and gas, even public health. So we have identified so far 11 host offices that we'll be partnering with for the upcoming year. And we are hoping to get a few more. So they are all based out of Gulf of Mexico. And we select a maximum of 10 fellows per year. And how we match the fellows with the host offices is that we have a matching process where the fellows and the host offices get to interview with each other, and they get to see what would be a best fit. So currently, we are open for applications, and it closes on March 3rd. And if you have any questions, feel free to email us at gulffellowships@nas.edu and also visit our website. Now I'm going to hand it over to Rachel to share some of her experience as a Science Policy Fellow for the year.
Hi, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. Sometimes my computer has some issues. I'm Rachel Crow. I'm a LSU PhD candidate at LSU. I am hosted at the Houston Advanced Research Center, or also known as HARC. My experience has been really great so far. I think each fellow has a different experience during this pandemic, but in my situation, we have been working completely remotely. My host office has been really great about that. I got to work on a lot of different projects so far that are relating to water and energy, air quality, resilience, urban heat, all relating to the Gulf Coast. And it's really given me an experience to expand. I was afraid of that. I'm terribly sorry. As I said, I have some mic issues. But I did want to touch on the fact that I have great mentors that was recently also a fellow in previous years that have been really helpful in streamlining me into the process, but also giving me guidance on our PD funds, so our professional development. We get a gracious stipend to spend for conferences and professional developments, such as memberships or learning experiences that I personally would never have been able to finance myself as a graduate student. So I'm very grateful for that part. And yeah, I just have really enjoyed my experience so far in being a part of what's influencing policy in the Texas and Houston area.
Great. Thank you very much. Hopefully we'll get back on time here. So Melody.
Hi all, my name is Melody Tan. I am a PhD candidate at Rice University. I was lucky to be a Christine Mirzayan Science and Technology Policy Fellow in 2019 at the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine. Highly, highly recommend this opportunity. It's probably been the best part of my PhD. Mirzayan is unique that it accepts current graduate students. So I did it very early on, just 2.5 years into my PhD. As well as people who have recently graduated. And there is also no citizenship requirement. So some participants are on student visas and some are DACA recipients. And it also includes social sciences, law, and business students. So the Mirzayan Fellowship is 12 weeks. It's usually from January through mid-April. However, this year, because of COVID, the timeline got shifted for the 2021 cycle. So it'll be from August 30th to November 19th, 2021. And so the application deadline also got shifted to April 30th. The stipend is slightly over $9,000 for the 12 weeks. And the application process is a written application, a statement, and rec letters, and then also 2 phone interviews. It's located in DC. There's usually a cohort of around 20 fellows. And so every fellow is placed with a board or a committee within the national academies. So I worked with the Board of Healthcare Services, but there's also other boards and committees that address energy, space, economic policy, law, higher ed, and just a really wide range of topics. And fellow work varies quite a bit depending on your placement. So I got to participate in 2 in-person stakeholder workshops addressing the oncology care force and generic drug labeling. While I was there, I helped plan leading up to the workshops, and I also wrote internal proposals for future projects for my board. Other fellows did a lot of work on technical reports. Some even traveled for workshops with their boards and committees. So the day-to-day does vary quite a bit depending on your placement, your mentor expectations, and really like what you're trying to get out of it. So I was very early on in my PhD, so I wasn't job hunting. I spent a lot of time at congressional hearings, running around to think tank events. I networked a ton, learned how to info interview and really perfected that. Lots of calls, coffee, and drinks with other science policy professionals in the DC area. Other fellows spent more time within the national academies. Some were job hunting, and so spent more time doing that. It's really about what you need to get out of that, and the mentors are very supportive of that. And there's also no expectation that you'll stay in policy. So previous fellows, many have ended up in DC in policy roles. Others have returned to academia, and some others have been in industry. It's just a really valuable experience to learn how the National Academies works, and a really good intro to the DC policy world, regardless of wherever you want to end up. And so, yeah, like I mentioned earlier, it's a great networking opportunity. Your cohort will be your best friends, and also previous alumni are incredibly helpful and supportive, and I just keep running into them everywhere I go. So definitely, if you're interested in the Merzion, please feel free to reach out to former fellows. We're all very, very helpful, and would love to see other people get involved in this program. Thanks.
Thanks, Melody. This is your last chance for general questions. If you'd like to type those in. While anybody's doing that, I wanted to mention the classes that I have coming up. So the level 2 class, which is on public policy analysis, the registration that will be closing pretty soon. If you're interested in learning those skills. And then there's a new class, which actually Melody is in, which is about analytical methods, benefit cost analysis, cost effectiveness, risk analysis. That will be starting again in March. So if anybody's interested in those, please be sure. You also heard me say at the beginning that this has been our 3rd webinar. Right now, I'm looking at the 4th webinar on federal resumes. That seems to be a popular topic. But if anybody has any suggestions, I think it will be useful. So I guess we only have like one question here that I see. So this is I'm curious to see where a physician with a background in radiology and global health would fit in. Any insights and feedback from the panelists would be much appreciated. Anybody want to chip in on that one? Well, I will add at least that since I ran the Merzion program for like a decade, that you would be fine probably as an applicant for the National Academy of Medicine. I know that at least when I was running the program, which is now like a long time ago, there's a roundtable in the National Academy of Medicine that I know that we had a fellow at, who now has moved on to a staff level position. So it really kind of depends at the academy. I think if there's openings at the boards and roundtables and so forth you're interested in. Did anybody else want to add anything? No?
I can imagine there could be relevant ORISE fellowships at NIH some years.
Yeah, but I think, I don't know if international students, can they apply for ORISE stuff? I'm not really sure.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Sarah had to jump off. So
Sarah had to jump off, so we do not know. So that's sort of the case. As far as I know, the only fellowship program that accepts international students which is why I'm glad Melody mentioned it, is the Morzine Fellowship, and it was specifically designed that way to be a bit more open than some of the other fellowship programs in terms of what it could do. So
yeah,
okay.
there's a
Yeah,
Board of Healthcare Services at the National, sorry, not Healthcare Services, Board of Global Health at the National Academies. So depending whether they're accepting fellows for that particular year, that could be a good fit.
Okay. So I do not see any last questions. So I think we'll end it for now, and let's give a virtual applause for all our panelists